Do we got time to just add like a 5-minute little caveat on training? We got time? 5-minute little caveat on training.
Yeah. Oh, please. Yeah.
Because this is a big question that's come up, and it's been a hot button item where 70B now became a standard, and everybody is clamoring for, we got to get our folks trained in 70B. We got to get our folks trained in 70B.
Sure.
But as we've talked about in the maintenance program, really the structure and layout of 70B is around guiding the development of that maintenance program. It doesn't have a whole lot of guidance in 70B as far as exactly what a primary injection test of ground fault protection looks like, or stuff like that. It doesn't tell me how to do that. It just tells me when to do it based on my equipment condition, right? So the training conversation, and it does say in 70B, just very much like 70E says, our people doing the work have to be qualified persons. So our people doing the maintenance tasks have to be qualified maintenance personnel. And then it spells out the training that they need to have. And when I look at this, boy, does the requirements in 70B for training look an awful lot like the requirements in 70E for training.
Yeah.
I mean, almost like they got copy and pasted. I mean, they're not similar.
Which section is that? Where's that?
So I'm in 4.3.3
for personnel, for electric maintenance training, and in 70E,
it would be section 110.4.
Yeah.
And so when I look at this here in that opening paragraph, there's a little bit difference in the opening paragraph. It says a qualified person responsible for conducting electrical maintenance shall be trained in the specific maintenance tasks, test methods, test equipment, PPE usage as applicable, and hazards associated with electrical equipment or system being serviced. And then I run down through the requirements, and a person, if I'm down at 4.3.3.3, says a person responsible for conducting electrical maintenance shall be provided additional training or retraining if any of the following condition exists. And it goes through the same list that's in 70E as far as when retraining needs to happen. Now, I was looking because this came up. Where is it? Where's it? There's the list that's in the training section in 110.4.
It says such person shall. Yeah, it says such person shall also be. So, like if I look at 4.3.1, a person who is undergoing on-the-job training is 110.4.1A, 1D. An employee who is undergoing on-the-job training for the purpose of obtaining the skills and knowledge, skills and necessary qualified person. So there's similar language, and it's not in the same order. But I would agree.
Where did I see it? Okay, so remember I made that joke earlier about how I my mouth went faster than my brain worked, and then I'm not having the same luck this time around. I thought I remember seeing it was that same list, trained in being able to identify de-energized from energized, and applicable use of test instruments and things like that. But I think that's kind of all contained up in 4.3.3.
Yeah, the additional training and retraining. You got the supervision or annual inspections. The supervision
charging paragraph all the way up at top.
Yeah, the training requirement.
That's retraining. 4.3.3.3 is retraining. But if you go all the way back up to the initial requirement, I've got specific tasks that I'm going to be doing, and then everything else is safety training.
It does look like that.
So my my maintenance tasks, my test methods, trained on to be able to use
Oh,
the
but
test
they
equipment.
they tweaked it a little bit. Like for example, 4333
Okay.
and 110.4A3. 110.4A3 is additional training and retraining. And it says in list item 1, the supervision or annual inspections indicate the employee is not complying with the safety-related work practices. In 433, it says the supervision or annual inspections indicate the person is not complying with the maintenance procedures and test requirements. So they
Yep.
tweaked the language from 70E to make it applicable to maintenance. But to your point, I don't know which came first. I don't know if it was in 70B first and then 70E sort of pilfered off of that, or if it was vice versa.
I think it was in 70E first.
Okay. And then they
Yeah.
just took that and tweaked it. But what's interesting is in 70E, it's in additional training and retraining, but in 70B, they don't call it that. They just put it in electrical maintenance training, period.
Right. Well,
But
and
they put the yeah.
4333 is about additional training or
It is.
retraining.
I just saw it. It
Yep.
just says shall be provided additional training or retraining if any of the following conditions exist. They just didn't create they did create a 433, but they don't have a title for it. And if it had a title, it would be called probably additional training and retraining.
Right.
That's the other problem I have with this style manual. They have 433, which is electrical maintenance training, and then they have 331, 332, 333, and they don't give titles for each of those sections. They just call them a different section. 70E and the National Electrical Code have a rule that every section and first
Section
level
has a title.
subdivision, yeah,
Yep.
everything has a title. And I understand why it should have a title.
Well, and the manual of style has the title rule, and I think it's every section. So like the section 4.3 is personnel.
Right.
And the first level subsection is going to be the 3 digits. So EMP coordinator, maintenance personnel, electrical maintenance
Mm-hmm.
training. But 4.3.3.1 and 4.3.3.2, they're more akin to like if I had a 110.3B2,
Yeah, but
right?
we don't. Yeah, but we don't do list items. But that's not even a list item. I mean,
No, no,
I
they're subsections,
yeah, but
right?
if you look at 4.4, 4.4 is survey and analysis. There's no title for 441, 442, and 443. You would think that 441 should have a title, 442 should have a title, and 443 should have a title just
It
based
should.
upon style.
It should, because
Yeah,
431 has a title.
exactly. Everything. I don't know.
Hey, you get to go to the annual meeting now and be the new Marcelo Hirscher, the
Oh my
guardian
gosh,
of this
yes.
the NFPA style manual of style. Of course, he will probably catch this. I'm surprised he didn't.
Yeah,
He catches just about everything.
he's good.
Um,
Yep.
yep. But the point, back to kind of bring it back on track
Yeah.
here. The point I was aiming at here is we've had this huge, I don't want to call it hysteria, but just this huge influx. Everybody saying, "Look, we need to get everybody trained on 70B," and so I make a living doing training, right? And
Right.
yes, we built a 70B training, but um, I really don't want to show up and deliver a training that isn't useful to people, because really a 70B training focuses more on the construction of that maintenance program. So if you're sitting here going, well, 70B came out, and now what do we got to get our folks for training, their maintenance personnel? Really, it's going to be in that section 4.3.3, where it specifically says they shall be trained in specific maintenance tasks,
Yeah.
test methods, test equipment, and then the rest of it, like I said earlier, the PPE usage and the hazards associated with electrical equipment or service system being serviced. That's all 70E training. So if you're already getting your maintenance technicians 70E training, so to meet the qualified person in 70E,
Mm-hmm.
you've already gone half the battle in what a qualified maintenance person needs to be. You need to add to it the specific task stuff and any specific equipment they need to use. So if they're going to use a megger, or they're going to use, do Doble testing, or any of that kind of stuff, they need to be trained in that specific task, that specific equipment they got to use, and in addition to their safety piece. Because guess what? If we went up to chapter 3, which is where I find all my definitions, my definition of a qualified person looks rather familiar in this document as it does to some other certain documents that we're already used to.
That's true. And here's my I'll just put some icing on that one.
Yeah.
I think that training on 70B, to your point, is about building your maintenance program and things like that. That is valuable training for people who are responsible for building for the maintenance program. I would say that there is additional opportunities to go chapter by chapter and say, okay, chapter 13, panel boards. How do I perform maintenance on a panel board? How do I ascertain the condition of maintenance of a panel board? How do I establish my frequency of maintenance? What are my visual inspections? What are my mechanical inspections, my electrical inspections? How do I clean a panel board? And do the same training for switchboards and switchgear and circuit breakers, because you could have personnel who know how to install a panel board, but have no clue how to maintain it. Windex doesn't clean everything, right? So
Right.
if you sat down and said, look, here, you put a training class together that focuses on panel boards, switchboards, and switchgear, and say, all right, we're going to spend a day and we're going to go through panel boards first. We're going to go to switchboards and then switchgear, and we're going to learn everything there is to know about how to maintain a panel board. Look at all the tests. We'll be referencing chapter 7 to your point. You could sit down and work in, how do you do primary current injection test? How do you do the thermography? How do you do all of those different things that are needed to perform maintenance on a panel board? Right?
Yes, absolutely. But it, and that's where when I started out to build the program, that's the program I wanted to build.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, that is not a one-day class that you can bring in, and this is an ongoing education, and it really is going to depend on how much of the stuff that individual is going to be doing, and the more I tried to build out that program, the more I tried to build out that training program. Number one, it always kind of kept coming back to safety. Because in addition to, here's all the things you have to do for maintenance on this panel board or switchgear or MCC or fill in the blank, you also want to answer the question in that training, and how do you do it safely?
So I don't disagree with you there, but I would envision, here's my thought process. It would be like going to a buffet. So you sit down and you say, I need training, I need maintenance training. So you have at the buffet, you need the plate, you need the silverware, you have the napkins. That's all the necessities. That's the program, right? The basically, look, you're about to enter into a buffet line, okay, and you like chicken, you don't like carrots, you don't like peas. You have what you're going to want on your plate, but you have the fundamentals. So your maintenance program is one level of training. Then I might sit down and say, in my facility, I have panel boards. I don't have switchboards or switchgear, so I don't need training on switchboards and switchgear. I need panel boards. If I look down through, I have busway, so I'm going to need training on busway, circuit breakers and fuses, switches. You could almost make it like a buffet, and they could come to you and say, hey, Eric, this is what I need. I need the overall and the safety and whatnot, but also I need specifics on circuit breakers, busway, fuses, and switches, and panel boards, because that's what I have in my facility. I have a lot of them. And oh, by the way, I'll have one crew who will be in there for panel boards and busway. I'm going to have another crew in there who does the breakers and the fusible switches, right? They may have different people in the audience that they want to bring up to speed. But I look at 70B training as this buffet of, I need the details on how to do maintenance on cable tray and fuses and switches. I need the information on how to put together an EMP. Those are two different audiences.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And so, you know, I love the fact that you just went down that whole long rabbit hole on training, because that is ultimately, the area I'm looking at from a consulting, space.
Sure.
I'm trying to come up with how do I really craft a relationship with somebody who comes to me and says, Derek, we don't know anything about this maintenance thing. What do we do? Right. And kind of
Yeah.
craft this sort of holistic approach to it. And it includes the assessments, it includes the EMP development, it includes all of that. And the training
Yes.
piece, we get into it, right? But it's there's a little bit, I don't want to call it hysteria, but there's a little bit of people in panic right now because an insurance company has come to them and said, what are you doing for compliance with this? Well, there's a lot more that goes into this
Oh yeah.
than just, oh, we'll take a 70B class and
Mm.
now you're maintenance trained.
So
It
just
You
think if
hit
you
the
could
nail on the head.
do this. If you were a full service organization, if you sat down and said, look, we're going to come in, we're going to work with you, and we're going to build the maintenance program, right? So we're going to work with your leadership and your directors, and we're going to build this maintenance program. And by the way, we're going to bring people in to start performing maintenance because you need to get on this right now. But what we're going to end up doing is when we perform maintenance on the fusible switches, we're going to do this with your people. And it's going to be a training and a swap of information so that you don't have to rely on us to do all of your fusible switches and all of your cables and your cable trays. You could hire us to do X, Y, and Z that you don't want to take care of, and we'll help you train your people on these other items that you have maybe more of that makes more sense. Like, if you sat down and said switches, I've got 10,000 switches, but I only have one switchboard. Now, are you going to waste the time and train your people on switchboards, or are you going to hire an organization that does switchboards for a freaking living and then have them come in and then do that work for you and then say, hey, we'll teach your guys on all this other stuff because we don't want that business. We want this business. This is where we do that. I think that's, I just
Oh,
got
you can't see it
goosebumps.
because of my background here, but I don't know how you got into my little personal notebook here, but I've got all that written down. Yeah. I mean, that is one thing.
Yeah.
One thing that I've been looking at, well, I shouldn't say I, because we're an organization, we're a team together, and we've been looking at and saying, how can we fit in this space? Because when they come to us and say, Derek, we need training, or eHazard, we need training, or we need an EMP built. The rest of it comes along with that because if they don't know what they need to know to put in an EMP, I can pretty much
Yeah,
guarantee you they don't have maintenance training, they don't have the management of the program. But
that's right.
we want to get them to a space where eventually we can hand this off. I mean, if they just
Yeah.
want to use us forever and ever, sure, but we want to elevate the industry, because really at the ultimate goal,
Yeah.
and it should be the ultimate goal for anybody who's providing training and consulting services and all that stuff, is our ultimate goal is to get people to go home safe at the end of the day.
Absolutely right.
And so we want to raise the tides everywhere, and be able to provide that level of kind of education within a facility. Not only do they now know what they need to do, they've got somebody who's capable of coordinating this program, they've got the right qualified
Yeah.
persons in place, they know what training they need to provide, the audits, the assessments, the all that piece, and it really is kind of a beautiful fit
Oh,
for
absolutely.
maintenance and safety, and it just helps the industry. At least I don't know. I get a little too excited about this stuff, but
No, you're
I'm
absolutely
not
right.
normal.
It's a,
Yep.
it's a huge, I think it's a huge business opportunity, and it's a huge value opportunity for everybody involved. Because if I can keep production up and running because I'm performing my maintenance, and when I perform my maintenance, I make sure that I don't cause any unintended downtimes and I don't send people to the hospital. It's all interwoven together. At the end of the day, the company, the shareholders are going to be happy if it's publicly shared because production is up and they don't have outages that they've got to contend with, which limits and constrains their production. So everybody is happy at the end of the day, and it's a service that you provide. That's a key. That's
Yeah.
yeah.
100%. 100%. And there's several of us in the industry that can kind of carry this torch as well.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
I'm
Yeah.
just at one place, so
Yeah, yeah, it's all we can do, right? So, and that's the other thing. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, and that's a like some people will, you look at like we do similar things in the industry. Eaton does maintenance. Eaton does projects and things like that. We supply equipment. You guys do similar overlap on education and maintenance and whatnot. But the reality of the fact is there is a ton of plants out there, and not one of our organizations can handle all of that volume. So
right.
it's important to raise the awareness that there's a need for this and help people understand how 70, 70E, and 70B work together as the three-legged stool to you that you mentioned earlier, and recognize the fact that they need to have a maintenance freaking program. If you don't have a maintenance program, you don't have 70E. A lot of people don't understand that.
Yeah.
They can
Yeah.
say, I have the best maintenance, I have the best safety program. I have every one of my guys have PPE. We built our own safety plan and all this great thing. But if you're not performing maintenance, your safety plan is not worth the paper it's written on.
Right. Well, and I always get them in the audit on the safety program because they say, well, no, we're up to date on our arc flash. And I say, okay, what's your maintenance program look like? Well, we don't do maintenance. I said, then how do you know what the incident energy is?
That's exactly right.
Because how do you know the upstream clearing device or the
That's
clearing
right.
time?
That's
And
right.
and they don't think about that. They
Nope.
don't think about that.
No,
So
they don't. And that's a very critical piece. And you know who will think about it? The electrical worker who shows up and has to ascertain the condition of maintenance. That individual is going to be sitting there trying to figure out what's my clearing time. That person understands it. And what we have to do as an industry is raise that awareness up to the right people, because a funded maintenance plan and a funded safety plan are critical for reliability, for uptime, for safety, and everything under the sun with regard to the power distribution system.
well, and even though OSHA doesn't have specific quote unquote maintenance requirements,
Yeah.
it's got that general duty clause in the actual law that says, look, as an employer, you have a duty to your employees to provide them with a workplace and a workplace that is free from known and recognized hazards. And
Mhm.
how do you do that if you don't have a quality safety program and a quality maintenance program?
I like that, Ty. I like that, Ty. I'm gonna have to remember. I'm gonna steal that one from you
It's
because
not stealing, it's free use.
it's
It's
free use.
OSHA.
It's OSHA. It's OSHA.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Yep.
I like because we just had that discussion in my 70E class about enforcement, and that's a very valid point. On how do I deliver a workplace that is free from those electrical hazards if I don't have maintenance?
I don't
That's
know a way.
I don't know a way either.
Well, you cannot have electricity.
Oh, that's definitely
Yeah.
an option.
So the
Yeah.
alternative is let's go back to water-driven belts.
Yeah. Oh man, but then you have to put the guards on, and we already went down that road. So, man, I'm not going down that road again. I love it. This was a good icing ad. I think what I'll have to do is make this a separate discussion just on maintenance. I'll give it a little
Awesome.
intro. I'll give it a little
Yeah.
intro, and and I think it was a very well worth the time in talking about training and the importance of that and the relationship between 7B and security.
Yeah.
Very good.